Welcome back again to We Should Be Working. I'm Zach Hendricks. With me, as always, is Jeff Finley. Jeff, how are you doing this week?
Hey Zach, good to see you. We are recording on a Wednesday because we couldn't do it on a Monday. Um, so it's great to be back. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to be doing the podcast, and I believe this is our last episode of our first season.
Exactly. Last we did. We've got our 12. We talked about doing that. So season one will be wrapping up here. Who knows about. We're talking about that now as far as what would be the future of We Should Be Working. I think for sure Jeff and I will have some sort of thing coming together, whether it's We Should Be Working, something else, or both, or multiples. We're going to spend some time to figure that out, which is pretty exciting. I mean, I don't know about you, Jeff, and we can maybe get into this a little bit at the end, but going back and thinking about the episodes and where I was season or episode one versus now,
Mhm.
there's a lot of like uncomfortable pauses, weird silences. Like I'm pretty nervous and all of that. The content felt a little bit more forced, and I was like, it's nice to like have us hit our stride a little bit more and get a little bit more comfortable. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were just getting to know each other and figuring out this podcast platform, and we were both in a situation. You had just lost your job, and I was in a rough situation where I was like wondering what the heck I'm going to do with my life. Where do I go from here? I'm in a transition, and we both have grown. I feel like quite a bit in the past 12 weeks, 12, 13 weeks, really. So yeah, we can get to that. We'll talk about that at the end of this episode.
So before we get
One
into
second.
that, I've always wanted to know, and I've never asked, and so I finally remembered to ask the sloths in your background.
Oh yeah.
What's do you have a thing for sloths, or they you just happen to have them, or oh, even more sloths? You
Yes.
you have a nice affinity with the sloth?
Yeah, I wasn't even a fan of sloths or even really aware of them until I met Kara, and we had gone to the zoo the first year we were dating, and there's a sloth there, and or actually it was on the and after we experienced the zoo, we like brought this like flyer home for the zoo, and it had an advertisement, and it had the picture of the sloth with his like little tongue hanging out. And we thought it was really funny and cute. And she said it was like, oh, it's just like, it looks just like you, Jeff. And I was like, I know, I love this creature. And I was like, what is this creature? And I started like researching, and I was like, I love this sloth. It seemed like it was my spirit animal. It really, really spoke to me. And I started noticing sloths everywhere. And I would go to the store and I would see like a sloth, stuffed animal or an image, and I would take a photo of it, send it to Kara, and it just became like a little inside joke between us, and a representative for like a spiritual aspect of me that I was trying to like embody. The sloth represented like mindfulness and presence and slowing down and being here and not rushing, you know. So I really admired those qualities, and you know, this mystical ancient being, he just like looked so chill, I was like, I want to be like that. I like that. So
It's pretty interesting. Mine was always I don't quite have it in the same way, but an animal that I always had an affinity with, and talked to my wife about that same thing. I kind of picked it up when I was with her, and I don't know where it kind of came from, but would be the sea turtle, which I've got my little
oh,
sea
okay.
turtle coaster there from Hawaii.
Hmm.
But kind of for a similar reason, I think is why I liked them so much is that it's kind of a slow moving yet peaceful creature. In their element, they just seem kind of majestic, very chilled, laid back, and just at peace, going with the flow. Obviously, in the ocean and things like that, and
Mm.
nowhere to rush to be, but still getting around, doing their thing. And I think that they're really cool and big. And I was scuba diving for a long time, and I always wanted to see the manta rays, and still do. Like I loved rays, but I think even more so as I got older, it was sea turtles. So when I was down in Hawaii, got to see some sea turtles, swim with sea turtle. Down there, which was very very cool. So yeah, that
Wow.
I'd say the sea turtle for me. So I totally understand what you mean with the sloth. They're I do think that they're pretty cool guys. That they're perfectly happy just hanging out all day, and they make it work.
Yeah,
Oh, I
It's
got
not
drag race going on.
drag racer going outside. Definitely not a sloth
Yeah,
racing around out there. I like a road runner. No, but there was a sloth sanctuary up in Portland,
really.
I think, and then there's one in Costa Rica that's very famous. Um, so Kara and I had been wanting to like make a trip down to Costa Rica at some point to like go see a sloth in the wild. Never experienced that other than in a zoo. But
I can't
yeah,
remember if I saw a sloth when I was in Costa Rica. So I used to I used to go to Costa Rica. I think I've been there 3 times, maybe 2 times.
no way.
But part of my work used to I had some people on my team that were down in Costa Rica. So when we were doing like team building stuff and all of that, went down there, did some zip lining, hanging out down in the coast, and it is kind of crazy being in the jungles down there. But I remember being told that they were famous for their sloths. But now that you say that, I don't think I did see any sloths
Yeah,
while I
because
was
they're featured on their like their money. They got the sloth on there. You know, it's
there.
definitely like the sloth capital of the world.
Yeah.
You know, Zach, have you seen this TV show called Enlightened? It's an HBO show by
No, I've seen ads for it.
Mike White, and it stars Laura Dern, and it's really good.
It's great.
But the sea turtle is a important part of that of the
Oh,
show.
really?
Yeah, it's a symbolic element of the show.
Oh, see, now I'm gonna have to go watch that again because my best friend, he had told me about that show and told me how good Laura Dern was on that. And usually, if he tells me it's good, I'm gonna love it. And I've forgotten so much about that show. All right, I'm gonna write that down, because if there's a nice little sea turtle in there, there might be something else for me to get out of it. Um,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that show. And Mike White was one of my favorite directors. I obviously what he did with White Lotus, incredible.
I didn't finish White Lotus. Did you like how they finished up their seasons and all that? I made it a couple episodes through and I liked it. I enjoyed it, but then I just got distracted. And then weeks, months went by and I forgot to kind of finish it. It's worth it to go and finish it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the shows. I mean, they're one of mine and Kara's favorite shows. I mean, it's just incredible. Like the pacing, the humor, the just the smartness, the wit, you know, and the character development. I mean, it was just hilarious in such a great, funny way for us. I don't know,
Well,
maybe
and
just
I
the
heard
right,
Aubrey Plaza
but
joining season 2, which I really like Aubrey Plaza.
yeah,
I think she's got such an interesting sensibility about her. Um,
definitely.
ever since Parks and Rec and all that. So anyway, I want to catch up with you. What's anything new, work front wise, creative wise? You getting any more crazy spam requests for bogus jobs from people and all that?
No bogus job requests this week, but I have been diving deep into this web design, web development, like
Yeah.
re-upping my skills. There's this course I'm taking on YouTube called Page Building 101 by Kevin Geary. Shout out to him because it's a really incredible course, and it's people say it's like I can't believe this is free and it's on YouTube, but you know. He goes really deep into like the best practices of web design and stuff that like I have not thought about but I've wanted to know about for a long time, and it's like it's like a fire hose of information about like anything that you need to know about best practices as far as building pages, doing web design, classes, CSS, stuff like that.
Really?
And I'm learning this because I'm have this goal of redesigning my site, and but through his class and through learning about him, I'm also learning about like, wow, I could be doing this for clients and I could be doing this for work. Like you know, he's talking about how people way undersell a website design that, you know, it's like he calls it chump like behavior. You know, he kind of like is coaching you to become a better web developer. Like we all need to improve our skills with as far as delivering delivering the website to the client, of course, but making it sustainable and maintainable, you know, so they can update it using like a global design system rather than jumping through their way and like updating every individual element. You know, they have like a dashboard where they can change all of their styles and their everything. So that's getting into the weeds. But what I appreciate about him is he's making me think that I'm charging way less than I should, that I have these skills that I could offer to people that I'm not utilizing, that this could be a career option for me. I like it. It appeals to my sensibility of being a designer, like the artistic side of being a designer, but then also sort of the logical sort of best practicey math driven like the typography scales and the spacing, the margins and padding are all driven by math rather than just eyeballs. So everything is like perfectly symmetrical, perfectly balanced through math and golden ratios and things like that. I appreciate that. So it's like hitting this other part of my brain. I don't know. There's a lot of things I like about it. So I've been diving into that and learning a ton about current web development, web design stuff, and seeing what is it that I want to do going forward. What resonates with me as a designer. Like I got to learn Figma. I'm behind the
Yeah.
times. Everyone's learning Figma, utilizing components instead of just, so reusable elements. Like here's a testimonial card and here's the styles for it. But that's a component. It's not something you redesign over all the time. So it's just stuff that I find like it's super necessary for me to learn. And we can touch on that at the end of this episode,
Sure.
where it's like, where do we see ourselves going in the future? And I think this might be part of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So with that series that you're watching on YouTube, would you say that it's for anybody that's brand new beginner up to experts? There's a little bit of something for everybody in there, or is it more like, hey, if you know a little bit about what you're doing, then this is for you?
I think you kind of have to know a little bit about web design and CSS, HTML. Like if you are going in and you don't know anything about HTML or CSS, it's not for you. So me having a background in HTML, CSS, I used to build websites when I was like in high school back in 1990s, 1997 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I learned a little bit, and then of course customizing MySpace pages and learning and building websites out that way. Use like we talked last week, like building sites with Dreamweaver and Photoshop and stuff. But that's not really the way people build pages anymore these days. And I kind of got away from it.
Yeah, nobody's hard coding stuff.
No one's really hard coding, and I kind of got away from all of that as I got into WordPress, and then I got lazy because I just would buy a theme and customize the theme using the settings and just kind of go with that because I did not have the ability. I didn't know PHP. I didn't know how to really make my own theme, so I just bought a theme and just customized it. And that's what I've been doing for the past like 10 years. But now I'm getting back into it. I'm like, oh, I can actually make my whole site exactly how I want it without using a theme. Like I don't need to buy somebody else's theme. I can just do it myself, and I actually believe that I can do it now. So I'm learning all of those things. But this course is definitely for like intermediate and advanced, even probably.
Sure. Well, and without trying to make the whole episode about web design, I'm kind of curious as a creative, so maybe other people are. I didn't really understand a delineation lately between web design and web development. I kind of always associated that they were the same thing, that if you knew how to design a website, you knew how to build a website, and things like that. So are you seeing more of that space kind of separating where a lot of people are specializing in web design that don't know how to develop, and there's plenty of developers that are not great at design? They're like, just hand me the design and I'll build it. Or is the industry splitting, or is it just more? No, it's not really splitting. Still, most people do a little bit of both, but there are people specialized in this and specialized in that. Like, and what do you kind of see yourself as? Are you good at both, or?
Yeah, that's a good question because, I don't have enough like experience and like breadth in the actual industry to see really where people are going. But my perception from the sort of outside looking in, kind of revisiting it, is that you more or less you kind of have to be you have to be both. I feel like just being a designer is a kind of a limited skill set. You have to kind of a little bit know a little bit about development. So the difference is, for anybody listening, it's like a designer works in design software. They prototype, they design with their like creative mind, their artistic abilities. They can move stuff around a canvas. They can visualize something really quickly, have multiple iterations of that design, and like really, really fine tune the visuals, how things are going to look as far as the style. Now the developer takes that design and says, here's how I make a web page out of it. And it's like, typically the process would be the designer has the design set. The web developer doesn't think about design. They just implement what has already been designed.
Yeah.
Now, with the whole idea of page builders and using WordPress and sites like Wix and Squarespace and these like modern more no-code design tools, like you don't have to be a coder to make a website anymore. So you don't have to know HTML and CSS. You can literally just drag and drop components, pre-made stuff, and modify things to get what you want. Sorry for the
They're getting that rag eraser. They're going to get them.
Yeah, so you don't have to be, but I'm realizing it's very important to kind of have a background in some of this stuff if you want to be able to have control and do it clean, do it your way. But the way WordPress is heading, they're making it so your average person can build a website and customize it without knowing any code. So they're trying to build in little blocks, patterns, components, pre-made templates that you can drag and drop onto a page, customize the colors a little bit, and then that's it. You don't really think about what's behind the scenes. You don't look at the CSS style sheet. You're not coding. You're not writing anything. You're just dragging and dropping, and that's where web development is heading. You know, so it's kind of, think about this, Zach. Like if you're making a video game, people in the past had to develop everything from scratch, but now it's kind of like a lot of those, we're all repeating the same motifs over and over again. So it's like, it's a lot easier to work in like an environment where you can drag and drop pre-made elements like a tree, a world, a rock, a stone, and like it's already textured, it's already made. You just like bought the kit and then you can like assemble it. So people are buying themes, buying a UI kit, assembling it together without really having to build all those elements from scratch. It's like so much extra work. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well then, like you said, it probably gets to the point of where I always get and where I get frustrated with my own website and why it's so bad and simplistic and all of that is that I'm like, you do all of that, but you can't, if you do a Wix or even a WordPress or things like that, you can get really close to the way that you want it, but not quite exactly. And that little extra 10% to me drives me nuts if I can't do it. Point that I'm like, I'm not doing this at all then. I want it to be like this, and this, and I'm okay with something subpar or probably even worse than one of those designs are. Cause I'm like, well, it's not quite there, but now this part stands out like a sore thumb and looks terrible. And so I guess knowing that's why I always wanted to learn the code and do HTML and CSS. Like when I did my first websites, I hard coded them. They were still really simplistic. Like I barely understood what I was doing, but that's what I liked about it is that I could at least make it exactly the way that I wanted to do that. So I can see the power of that. It's like, yeah, if you really want to be good and powerful at this, then you kind of need to know how to do that. It's kind of like, even though a lot of editors now for video, you can edit just by doing the text. It'll pop up the transcript and you can just delete the text and it'll erase the video. Sure, you can edit that way, but if you want to be good at it, you can't let that be your only option and tool. So that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like in music production. You kind of either know your scales and know your music theory and know how to create a drum pattern from scratch or whatever, or you can just drag and drop samples, pre-made loops, and just kind of build your song using those pre-made elements. And you don't have to know theory, you don't have to know anything, you can just like do it, but you don't have complete control. And the same thing is happening with AI, which is really where web design is going anyway. The AI influence on web design is really taking over. But what's happening is it's like, I've tried these tools and they spit out like a basic template. It's like almost worse than a theme. You type, I want to build a 5-page website for a graphic designer who's also got a podcast and a bunch of music projects. And it's like, oh, here's your template, but it looks like extremely generic and it's not quite there. I mean, this is probably like 60% of the way there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go either take this template and then erase all the stuff that I don't like and try to build on top of it with the stuff that I do want. And it's like, it's confusing and it's annoying. And the same thing, I experienced the same problem with WordPress themes too, Zach. Like when you said like your website gets 90% of the way there and the last 10%, it's like, I can't change this, or how do I do this? How do I finagle with the presets that they've already designed? I can't customize it. It looks janky. I want to add this extra thing in there. Now it looks out of place. It looks dumb, but I don't know how to actually go make it all look cohesive and fit. So what you get is like this website with a bunch of add-ons that look like they're just like pieces and parts that you just bought. It's like you've got a car and you've customized your car by buying like windshield wipers from Walmart and you bought like some hubcaps from AutoZone and you're like putting it all together yourself and it just does not look like it's one unified design.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you just threw that part in there and you can't get rid of it. I guess we're not using that or something. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to pick up our conversation from last week. I know that you were in Europe, ended up, I know that we were talking about time that you spent over in Germany. And so I want to hear more about how, you were talking last week a lot about hey, getting over to Europe, and we talked about the sense of, if you can find scrappy ways to travel on a dime or make it work. And so when you went into that trip and made it over to Germany, I imagine that you hit other places. Was it just Germany? How long were you in Germany? And then when you got to so what was there a bunch of other places that you went to?
Yeah, I definitely went to like 7, 8, 9 other countries. Um,
Was
I
that
spent
the
some.
plan the whole time to
Yeah,
go
oh yeah,
Germany?
the
A bunch of
start with
places?
Germany, and then I wanted to go visit. Definitely wanted to go visit Ireland, which I did. I spent some time in Scotland. I went to Finland. Italy. I spent a bunch of time in, and a little bit of Switzerland. I passed through there a little bit. Um, yeah, that's
What
pretty
time of
much what
year was all of this? Was
this
it summer?
was. I believe it was like April, May, June.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, I do remember that, and getting around was actually not as hard as I thought. Like, especially within Europe or in the EU, you can just like hop on a train and go across the country to another place, and it's pretty easy. Or take a bus. I use this service called Flixbus, and you had an app and you can easily book your tickets. It was a super cheap way to travel. And I stayed in hostels. I stayed at Airbnbs. It was one of the
How was
easiest
that
ways to do it.
How was that experience staying in hostels? Like, I think especially after the late 90s and early 2000s, there's this whole stereotype that hostels are filled with serial killers and chainsaws.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you staying there?
Well, it was pretty nice. I mean, these hostels were, especially in Europe, they're just like done up. I mean, they're really well staffed, and it's not dirty, it's not messy. It's like super popular basically for students and for young travelers as they're passing through. So it's a great place to meet people, to kind of pass through, and you stay in a bunk, in a room. There's other people there, but it's like nobody really cares. You just like you're in, you're out. You can talk to people if you want. You don't have to. They usually have pretty good Wi-Fi, and it's about maybe 20, $30 a night. You can just crash
It's
there.
crazy. That's crazy to me. And it seems like in Europe as well, that's pretty easy to find. Like
Yeah.
we don't have that. It's not like you go through Colorado and you're like, oh, there's hostels everywhere, or something. Or it's like, oh, I'm going to stop by Dayton, Ohio, and go find a youth hostel. Is that it's just a different culture over there? Am I right or what?
Yeah, it really is. And I used an app. I forget what it was. It was a pretty popular hostel search engine app. It's like kind of like Airbnb, but for hostels. And they have all these ratings and reviews, and you can see all this information about them, the prices, book it on there too.
Crazy. So you're in Europe. What? And I know that you hit Germany first. Was the purpose of this trip a lot more for kind of vacation? I know kind of the first road trip, it seems like the theme was a lot of self-discovery and self-exploration as far as new themes in life and spiritual awakening. What was there kind of a theme for the Europe trip, or was it much more of a vacation?
I mean, this was still solo travel, sort of find myself, following my spirit. I really wanted to connect with nature and see beautiful nature spots in Europe that I've never seen before, go hiking. Um, I was really into castles at the time, so I got to
Nice.
see like Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany. It's a brilliant Disneyland looking castle. Some of these places are just outstanding. So just being a little bit of a tourist, as I see all of that stuff, and trying out different coffee shops in Europe. There's a bunch of stuff in Italy that I got to see. I did a lot of hiking on the Cinque Terre in Italy, which is like this coastal town. It's a connection of a bunch of different coastal towns that look all like scenic and photogenic and totally European. And there's hiking trails that connect all of it too, and then a train on the way to get back. So it's just wow, I got to experience so much cool nature. And I mean, I've documented a lot of this stuff with my photos on my website. I have a whole gallery of photos that I put on Unsplash for anybody to use if they want to use them as stock images for their website. So all of the photos I took on the travels were posted to Unsplash. And it's kind of a nice artifact that I got to have taken away from that.
What camera were you shooting on out there? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, my iPhone 5.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
iPhone 5. Nice.
Or no, wait, iPhone 6, I think I had.
Oh, okay. Nice. It really makes me happy and really sad with how good cameras are getting on in phones right now because they really are. It's incredible. And some of the technology in these phones, I'm like, not even the most expensive video cameras can do what my phone is doing, where I can pick the focus in after I've shot it. Like I can shoot a video and then choose where I want the focus to. Like it makes no sense to me. And obviously, we don't make movies and stuff that way, where just shoot it and you'll fix it later. Everybody always says that, but it's becoming much more of reality, more and more and more these days. These phones, and mainly just because like I get nostalgic. Like this is my favorite little travel camera.
What do
As
you got there?
I've got the Panasonic LX100. They've
Okay.
got the LX100 too now, but basically this does 4K video. It's got a German Leica lens in it, 24 to 70, and it's really fast lens. It'll get down to a 1.7, so it gets some really nice shallow depths of field. Like this camera is unbelievable, and I can just shove it in my jacket. But more and more and more, I'm like, I don't need this. I'm carrying my phone around. What like my phone can do a lot of what this camera can do and better, except that does have a much better lens. But no, that's awesome.
For
I like
sure.
to hear the iPhone.
For sure. And then I filtered everything with the Visco app. And
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah.
everything looks cool, you know. But yeah, those photos are up on Unsplash if anybody wants to go see them. I'll put a link in the show notes.
So when you leave Europe, did you have a sense of finality out of there as far as like, you know what, I got out of this trip what I needed to get out of there, or was it like I'm out of money, or I'm burned out, or something else called you back to the States, or what made you want to end it?
Yeah, I definitely felt ready to leave because, you know, there's only so many, you only have so much tolerance for this. Like, okay, where the heck am I going to go tomorrow? Where am I going to stay for the next 2 days? I'm tired. I would really like a place to rest for a long time that I don't have to pay for, or that, yeah. So it's like, I just felt it, you know, I needed to come back home. So I flew back home, after spending about 3 months there, and I crashed it back at my parents' house, you know, which is where I was. I moved after my divorce, you know, so after my divorce in 2015, or moving out of Austin, I stayed at my parents' house and I was able to travel. And, you know, like I said in the last episode, my mom picked up my Starseed supply orders, so she took care of those from my Etsy shop.
Yeah,
And then I'm traveling, and I have this like monthly income coming from the shares, the buyback of Go Media's shares when I left that company. So like, and also I'm not spending any money on an apartment, so I give that up. So like the money that I would have spent on an apartment, I'm using to travel around Europe and to do that. So I was basically staying afloat, you know. And then when I got back to the States, stayed at my parents' house for another 3 months before I felt like I wanted to go travel again. You know, I didn't know where I was going to move. The whole thought process was, where am I going to live myself now as an individual? What am I going
sure.
to do?
Well,
So
because
I was
yeah,
like,
I'm curious about
yeah,
there is this thing as adults, we all I think you did as well, but same for me. I was, when I left for college at 18, that was very much a thing of, almost a modern coming of age story of I'm out, I'm an adult, I'm on my own now. And then you come back to your parents' house, you're like, hey, I gotta come stay here a little bit. And there's a lot of growing up that has happened in those last couple of years as far as when you left and came back. Like, I think those were probably the biggest maturing years for me as far as like, I've got it all figured out. And you quickly realize I don't have this all figured out. And you almost have a new awareness of like, okay, I'm going to listen to what you say now. But what was your experience like going home with your folks? Are they welcoming? Is it not welcoming? Is it get the hell out of here, go get a job, or hey, just whatever you need, come back?
well, they were very welcoming, you know, for sure. They're like,
Yeah,
well, you got your old room still there, so you can just stay there. So as much as they were welcoming, I can only tolerate staying in their environment for so long before I'm like, I got to get out of here because, you know, like I don't really belong here. Like they have their own routines, their own things to do. They also just have a different lifestyle. They drink, they smoke, you know, it's just,
yeah,
So I'm not really, it's not really for me. I need to get out. I need my own space. So it's like, okay, thanks for letting me stay here. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. And I got to save a little bit of money. And of course, mom and dad are always like, happy to have you home, son,
yeah.
but,
I
but,
mean, it was
get out there. You don't really belong here.
yeah. I mean, it's difficult to say because it sounds like I'm, disparaging my parents or making, painting a picture that they're bad parents or horrible people. And that's not the case. But even like when we got this house, um, the market was so aggressive when we were buying this house that we couldn't get a used house. Um, and it like we were trying and trying and trying and just could not. Our house sold like that, like within hours, basically. My old house sold incredibly quick, was gone right away, because the market was so hot back then. But I couldn't get another house, so we were like, we're just going to do a new build. But because of that, then we were going to have to wait an extra couple months, and so I had to go live with my parents. Here I am bringing my wife and my kids to go live at my parents' house. And while that in some way sounds like, oh, you're taking a vacation together, that might be true for like 2 or 3 days, but like months, it was maddening.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not to put them down. They loved having us there and were extraordinarily accommodating. But I'm like, this is weird to be back in my childhood room, at my parents' house. I'm in here with my wife and my kids are like, I cannot deal with this at all. I've got to get out of here. Like I could not have gotten out of there any faster. And yeah, it's not even, the lifestyle. I don't know. There's just something about, for me, I cannot deal with being back at home with them. And, not feeling independent. It makes me feel like I'm not in control of my life, that I can't do anything on my own. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good dad.
Hmm.
All of this, it makes me feel inadequate if I have to go back to mom and dad and rely on them, for all that. Now, I could have stayed there for probably 5 years, um, and they would have been more than happy to have me, and all of that. And I'm sure they love seeing their grandkids, and everything every day. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's a difficult thing, having to be there with your wife and being in the same proximity as your parents. It's almost like you
Yeah.
feel like you brought your girlfriend home from high school. And you're like, we're in the bedroom together. Ooh. And
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how going back in that environment like regresses you age wise and
yes,
the way that you think and feel and behave, you start to feel like you could be 35 years old, but you end up feeling like you're 10 again. It's back in that environment. At least it's bringing up those feelings that maybe you did when you were a kid, and so it's funny because I think back to my parents, and there was a period of time that we stayed with my grandma. My dad moved in back at his whole childhood home, had to bring his whole family because they were on some hard times, and so for a period of I don't know 5 to 7 years, we lived with um, his mom, and so my mom and dad had a place in the basement, and that's where they stayed. But like mom, grandma lived upstairs and in the rest of the house, and it was like I was just a fixture of my growing up. Was grandma was always around. So
yeah,
I can't imagine how my dad felt
yeah,
moving back into with his mom and bringing his wife and 3 kids with him.
yeah, with him. Yeah, exactly. Because I remember it would drive me nuts, even if she asked me, like, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? And I'm like, would you, I'll get whatever I want to get. If I want, I'm capable of making dinner for my own family. And she's just trying to be nice and accommodating and like a good host. But it made me feel like I'm like 13 years old again and be like, oh, okay, what are you doing? What are we doing for dinner? Maybe you could come and help out. And it was so difficult to do. But at the same time, I'm still extremely appreciative that they were in a place that they could do that and willing, to do that as well. And then it's funny now, like having kids of my own, where I'm like, oh, I would do that in a heartbeat. And it's not that big of a deal. Like, yeah, in 10
Yeah.
years, my son's looking to get a house or whatever. He's fallen on hard time. Come back, of course. Come back over here. You can stay as long as you need to and all of that. And
Hmm.
it's no big deal. But the flip side of that is, oh man, it's crazy. So,
Yeah. And well, like you said, Zach, you bring up this like sense that we talked about this whole podcast, which is like our sense of duty and responsibility that we feel as a man that we're supposed to be independent and not ask for help, or if we do need help, we kind of feel like kind of guilty that somebody is like helping us, and we got to make sure we pay them back or whatever, even though maybe your parents are freely giving their help and they love having you there. It's just hard to really feel that as you feel like what you've experienced is like this fall or this failure, that you're no good because you couldn't make it out by yourself and you had to come back home. Um, I had a visceral experience of this when I was living there because I had my brother and everybody helped me move all of my stuff into my parents' house, but like I had like thrown my back out during that process, and I couldn't even help move because my back was like so out of shape. I
Oh
could barely
no.
even stand up. And so they're all moving my stuff for me, and I'm like feeling really bad that they're all moving my stuff. And then, and then once I was moved in, I really couldn't get out of bed, and I had my mom was like bringing me stuff. I couldn't even get out of the bed to pee. So my mom is like literally bringing me like a jug to pee in,
Yeah.
and like I needed their help to like hold me up, to pick me up, to go to the bathroom to like do a number two or something. And it's
Uh-huh.
like I felt so embarrassed and like humiliated because it was almost like the entire my ego persona like just was disintegrated as I was like this like helpless, disabled, needy person that couldn't do anything on his own. And I really had to ask for help. And I couldn't even lift up my own underwear. And I had to ask my dad to do that. And that was like one of the most embarrassing,
Yeah.
humbling experiences of my life, being a grown man and having to have my dad help me put my underwear on. I mean, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's just, and I'm sure as a parent, in some ways you're more than happy and proud to do it. It's like, no, we got you. That's, our job as parents is to do our best to help you out when you need it. And but on the other side, yeah, I was going to say I can't imagine anything that would be extremely uncomfortable for me watching other people move my stuff. And I'm like, I mean, and if they came up and asked me, where do you want me to put this? And I'm like, I feel like such a jerk to be like, well, can you put it over there? Just like,
Yeah.
am I being picky now and all of this as far as going through this? Yeah, that would be tough. That would be
Yeah.
difficult. So you move, so you come back home, you're back from Europe, you're there for a few months, and then so you decide to leave again? Or you're trying to figure out where to live.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't going to stay with my parents. I have to figure out where I'm going to live. So, because I didn't know, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take another cross country road trip. I'm going to go to some cities that I didn't go to last time. I'm going to scope it out from the perspective of, could I live here? Is there a reason I could live here? So, I drove back up. I went to Portland. I'd never been to Portland before. Um, I loved it up there, and I drove, saw my friends in California, some high school friends, hung out with them for a little bit, went back to, drove through the middle of the country, ended up back in Austin for like the second or third time,
So
revisiting a lot of this stuff.
I gotta ask too,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but I don't know if I asked from the original road trip. What car are you driving around here? Because is this
Oh,
two road trips with the same car?
two road trips with the same car. It was a 2013 Toyota Prius.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay, that's pretty good, reliable car then to
Yeah.
to get you through all of that. All right,
Oh,
that's
for sure, for sure. And it was the best. I mean, and I slept in my car too. I had, my hotel Prius, I had like a mattress in the back there. So I did utilize some rest stops and some like side of the road kind of scenarios. And I stayed in there or parking lots at Walmart or parking lot at the national park or something like that. I mean, it was kind of risky. It felt a little unsafe, but nothing bad happened to me, fortunately. I didn't get any police knocking on my windows, but it was hard to sleep, and I had to pee in a bottle or, and like in my car. And it's just like, that gets old, and you're like, I really don't want to have to keep doing this. But I'm helping me save me money because I do not want to spend $100 a night at a hotel when I'm just like scooting around the country. I don't have that kind of money. I just need to save as much as I possibly can.
yeah.
But
So was this road trip just planned out as far as, like you said, places that you thought you might want to live? So like Portland, I mean, Portland is, I would guess, still pretty up and coming, but new, cool, hip, artsy place
Mhm.
to be. You have friends in California. Where else do you stop at and why?
Well, aside from like some of the national parks, I did stop in Denver. I went to Estes Park,
Oh
Colorado.
yeah, I
I
love
went to
it.
Rocky Mountain National Park. Beautiful there. I really liked Denver. I thought it was cool. I haven't been to Boulder. That's a city that I passed up. I didn't get a chance to visit.
Sure.
That's on my bucket list. Um, yeah, and I made my way back around. Just with that intention. I don't really know. There's some. Oh yeah, like Albuquerque, New Mexico. Sedona, Arizona was another favorite spot of mine. I went through Mount Shasta. uh, Mount Shasta. I don't know if I've told you the hobo story of Mount Shasta. Did I tell you
No,
that?
no.
Oh my God. Okay. So Kara's mom is probably going to listen to this episode and be like, "Yes, the story that I've been waiting for." so so I went through Mount Shasta, which is Northern California, and it's like a spiritual town, like a Sedona, Arizona, but it's up there in Northern California. A lot of hippies go there. There's
Gotcha.
like a big mountain. It's kind of a really nice, cool peak. But anyway, so I'm like feeling like very spiritual. I'm parked. I'm at this Mexican restaurant. I'm having my dinner, and then after I'm done, I take my leftovers with me. And as I'm walking on the street, I see this like gang of hobos. It's like it's exactly what you might expect. Like, almost like with the stick and like the little
Really?
pouch. They're just like and there's like a couple young people, and they just look like they're travelers. They're all dirty. Um, I noticed them. So anyway, I get in my car, I'm driving, and I like see them, and they're like sitting out at this sidewalk, and they've got a dog on a string, as like you could imagine. And I saw they had a guitar, and I was like, oh, they're cool, they're playing. So I like walked up to them, and I was like, hey, nice guitar playing. And then I had my cajon drum that I brought with me. If you're familiar with this, like basically a wooden box that sounds like a kick and a snare when you're drumming on it. It's really percussive.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, you want to jam? I was feeling invigorated. I was like, let's do it. And they're like, cool. So I get the cajon out and I'm sitting there jamming with them, and they're strumming on the guitar and playing shitty kind of folk punk music.
Wow.
And there's the folk punk aesthetic is something that has already spoken to me. I talked about Berea Fest. I talked about DIY punk. I was really into folk punk music, like for a big period of my life. So seeing these guys that look exactly like what you'd expect, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. And I offered them my leftovers, and they were excited to eat my leftovers. Then this one guy comes up, and he's asking if I can drive him over to their campsite, where they're staying. And I was like, yeah, I could do that, So we all hop in the car, and I driving more to their campsite. But they're like, hey, can we swing by the gas station? I got to get a few things. I was like, okay. So we stop at the gas station, and they're looking to buy liquor, but of course none of them have any money. So he's asking me
There's-
if I could buy it for him. I
Yep.
was like, all right, I'll get you something. And so he sees me get my credit card. I was like, oh, you got a credit card? I'll get. I was like, no, 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 just
Yeah.
one thing, buddy. So they get one thing, and then so I'm like, this is all right. I'm helping these guys out. We're gonna go to their campsite. So we drive up these crazy curvy roads in the middle of the mountains, and so there's like this primitive camping site. It's free camping on the mountain, which is kind of interesting. So a lot of squatters and hobos kind of take advantage of that. And so it's like this hippie campsite area, and there's a bunch of other people. And I'm talking to this one kid, and he's kind of got dirt on his face. He's about 18, and I'm asking him if he's ever heard of the Starseed. I tell him about my trip. I'm on the Starseed tour. And I was like, you ever familiar with Starseeds? And he's like, oh yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm an Andromedan, she's a Pleiadian, and she's a Syrian. And I'm like, oh god, these guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're talking about like spiritual stuff. They're like smoking weed, and they're like probably, they're high. They're like, we're all united, we're all connected,
Wow.
man. And so they're all feeling good. And then I'm telling them I'm going down to San Francisco next, and they're like, can we come with you? And I was like, oh god, okay, well, I guess,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, all right, all right,
These guys, yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll let you come in, and then they're like. So then they're like, hey, telling their friends, he's going to San Francisco. You want to come on? I'm like, oh God, now more of them. And so I was like, I only got room for like 5 people in my car. I got
What
one
if
for
you got the
me,
clown
one
wagon?
of the best. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I only got enough room in my small Prius, and I've got all my stuff in there too. So what
Yeah.
are we going to do? Anyway, so four folks decide that, they're going to move, they're going to come down with me. And one of the guys coming down with me, his name is Trainwreck.
Oh
Okay.
wow. Yeah.
That's his name. That's his hobo name. And
That's it.
he's a bit older than the rest of them, and he's a bit more haggard.
Of course.
But
I wouldn't expect anything else from Trainwreck. Yeah.
yeah, right. And then the other 3 kids are like fresh out of high school, like Grateful Dead. Just they're young. They're just more like exploring their hippie phase. So they're
Sure.
like deadheads basically. The other guy is basically literally like a lifelong train hopper. But so they get in the car. We're going now. Now we're traveling down. It's midnight. Okay. And I'm like, I'm just going to drop you off as far as I can get. And so when I told them that I was like going to drop them off at a hotel, they're like, oh, well, can we stay there too? And I'm like, oh God, it's like you give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yes,
And I really
exactly.
had to, I really had to set some boundaries with them and
Yeah,
say, like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But the drive down there was kind of rough in a way because Trainwreck is like sitting in my passenger seat. He's drinking his whiskey that he bought at the gas station, and he's fucking with my radio. He's like turning it up. They're like asking if they can plug their iPod in, and they're like turning up this music. It's really loud. He's opening my sunroof. He's putting his hands on my sunroof. He's just really loud. And they're playing Bob Marley in the back seat. You know, they're
course.
it's like the Rasta shit going on.
Yeah.
So we make our way down there. Eventually, Trainwreck tires himself out. He falls asleep. I'm like, finally, we've got some peace. The three well-behaved kids in the back are doing fine. You know, they're really cramped in there. Like they literally have their big bag underneath on the seat, and so they're like their legs are like their feet are up by my head.
Oh my gosh!
Because they have to put their bags under the seat so they can't sit regular. So they're all uncomfortable. We finally make it down to California or San Francisco, and they want to be dropped off at Golden Gate Park. It's 5:00 in the morning, and I drop them off at Golden Gate Park, and there's a bunch of other hippies and people that they can meet and mingle with because I guess it's like a really good spot for that. And so they're like, "Thank you so much for taking us down," and it ended up being a decent experience. But I called my friend Dan, who lives in San Francisco, and I said, "Hey, I'm here a day early. I know it's like," I texted him. I said, "I know it's like 5 in the morning, but like, if you get this, let me know." And he got it. And he said, "Yeah, come on over." So I was able to just go over to his place a day early and sleep. And I let the hobos go. And I was like, whew, okay, well, there we go. So
crazy gypsies. I love Trainwreck. And when people are proud of these names and tell everybody, you're like, oh boy, this is red flag everywhere. But yeah, that's exactly what I would expect. And you find yourself in those situations where it's like, well, I don't want to be a jerk, and maybe there's some weird experience that I need to get out of this.
Exactly.
And then you're in, and you're like, what am I doing with this guy? Like, this is so annoying. And dude, lay off my stuff. I love the credit card as well, where they just think it's like unlimited money. Oh, you have a credit card, you can just buy anything. It's like, no, it's I still have to pay for this. This is not just free money that they're giving me.
Yeah, I know. So fortunately, nothing bad happened to me. It was a lesson. I was feeling extra spiritual, extra connected, spontaneous, ready to do something crazy. So I'm glad nothing really happened to me, and I got a great story to tell out of it. So
totally. So where does your road trip? Where does it conclude? Where do you finish that up at? So you're way up northwest, and then you're driving back to Ohio. You stop by, it sounds like Albuquerque along the way, Denver, Albuquerque. Pretty familiar with all those places. Santa Fe,
Sedona, Austin again.
Austin. Oh, okay. Yep, back through Austin.
I also drove through Kansas and Oklahoma. Stayed at a few places down there. But anyway, I was making my way to Arkansas. So in Arkansas was an event I was going to go to called Starseed Crystal Quest. This is put on by the folks at starseedhotline.com. So when I first learned that I was a starseed by the shamanic healer who did a soul retrieval on me, she told me I was a starseed, and I was like, oh, interesting. I've heard that term, but I don't know. So I did some research on it, and I was like, I don't know. And so I like asked my...
Well, Nat, I don't know if I fully understand what that means.
So a starseed is like this idea that your spirit, or you have to kind of have this already an understanding that you are more than just your body. You kind of more identify that you are a spirit in a body, that you're kind of an infinite creature, infinite being, and you've had many, many, many lifetimes in different star systems and different galaxies. This is not just your first time in the rodeo. Like, you're here on Earth for a specific reason, but you're familiar with being on different star systems and planets and everything like that, and living in lots of different environments. So that's why when someone says they're a Sirian or they're a Pleiadian or they're an Arcturian, they're referring to like the star system that they feel like they've come from, or that is more home to them than Earth. So if you like the stereotype of a space cadet, someone whose like head is in the clouds, or they feel like they're kind of a cosmonaut or something, they resonate more with like the astral realms, or they may or may not have contact or familiarity with extraterrestrial races. So they might identify with the Pleiadian race, or the Greys, or the tall whites. Or there's if you do any research on it, it's very popular in the New Age.
Gotcha.
All of these starseed races have characteristics and qualities and lore and history. It's almost like sci-fi fan fiction. And then it's kind of like, which star system do you come from? You can like take a quiz and
Gotcha.
you identify with the traits. Like, I really am like this way. And they say, well, you must be a Pleiadian. And so at the base level, you kind of like, oh, well, I guess I identify as that. To me, it was
Gotcha.
just fun. But when I like asked my spirit, am I a starseed? I would get goosebumps and chills. Like, I felt like there was some truth to this idea. Whether or not I know for sure if I've come from any of these systems or whatever, I don't know.
Sure.
But using that as a name, I can talk to somebody and they're like, know what I'm talking about. And then we can
Yeah.
start to have deeper discussions about who we really are, what's our true nature, where we come from, why are we here on Earth. So most starseed type people who identify with that label think they're here on Earth to sort of help the planet, like maybe raise the consciousness, heal people, heal the world, awaken people to help people become enlightened, to realize there's true spiritual essence or something like that. So that's what I was doing, and so the Starseed Hotline website, it's like a website straight out of the '90s. It looks like shit, but they had this like Starseed astrology chart reading to sort of confirm that you were a starseed. And I don't know, it could be like a grift or a racket. Basically, you pay them $60 and they'll look at your astrology chart and tell you if you're a starseed or not. And so and then they give you a 1 hour call and they review your chart and tell you, you've got chart positions and this, and that aligns with what they call Pleiadian lineup, when these certain planets in the Pleiadian star system is like in line with the Earth or whatever. And it's like, that's sort of the pipeline that your soul came in on to incarnate onto Earth through this like pattern. So you've come into this Earth with a pattern, like a blueprint, basically, because of the time and the space that you incarnated on. That's why astrology is so accurate a lot of times, because the time and the place and the location that you incarnate or born kind of sets a blueprint for how your personality is going to be in this
That's right.
lifetime. And then if you look even deeper, it goes into like this starseed, like how do you decide when to incarnate, which family you're going to come into, all of this kind of stuff. Anyway, so they did my chart.
Yeah, I'd like to see how many people they say are not a starseed.
Well, they say like everybody's a starseed, right? It's like
Yeah, that's
most of the people, everybody here is like not really from here. Like
sure.
it's not like it's some people are, some people aren't, but definitely some people become aware of the idea and then resonate with it and like adopt it as an identity. Other
Mhm.
people are completely, they don't care about it at all.
Sure.
So they take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, so these people, they have an event. So anybody who's been confirmed as a starseed is invited to come to the Crystal Quest in Arkansas, Arkansas is the quartz crystal capital of America.
Okay.
Like, it's one of the largest places for crystal quartz and mining. And within New Age and starseed circles, there's such a fascination with crystals. So if you go to Sedona or you go to any of these, Mount Shasta, there's all these shops with crystals everywhere. I'm sure if you're familiar with anything spiritual or New Age, you associate it with like weirdos that like to hold crystals, and they're
Yeah.
really fascinated by it. So there's something to crystals, and quartz crystals specifically is a way to like open your consciousness and connect you to the spiritual realms and stuff like that. So anyway, we were going to meet up and then have like a 5-day retreat there, and then dig our own crystals out of the ground, and then have a good connection with other star seeds. So so am I losing you, Zach, or
Oh, no.
oh, you following?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the interesting things that I found out was when I signed up to go to the Starseed event, I realized that they told me that another guy that that was going to be there was from my high school. So I went to high school with another guy that was going to the same Starseed Crystal Quest, and I never knew. I never had any communication with him or anything, but he was kind of a friend of a friend of a friend. And so that was kind of interesting. And I remember him messaging me and saying like, Jeff, I read your post on your blog that you were a starseed. That's really cool. Like, I'm into the same kind of stuff. Like, and so I got to hang out with him and see him at the Crystal Quest, and bizarre. So that was like the final point of my road trip. I was going to go there. Yeah. And so
Was that how did you find the experience, this Crystal Quest? Was it, I mean, I guess I could make assumptions, but yeah, what was that like?
well, all right. So the Starseed Crystal Quest, you can say this was the last point where I stopped really believing in the Starseed concept. Like,
Gotcha.
now, I wouldn't say I've stopped believing in the concept, more or less, but like I've divorced it from the group. because the group had some culty vibes to it, like anything.
Oh yeah.
Anything spiritual that has a group associated with it, the group behavior, the dynamics that seem to happen, end up triggering skeptic alarm bells, like culty, weird vibes. Like this is not. You're taking the truth that we all resonate with, but now you're building this thing out of it that we all have to kind of believe in.
Exactly.
Whether like you're here to perform your mission, you do these rituals to try to receive what your mission is, and so you can understand what your life purpose is. And we do these like weird reclaiming of power rituals where we stand in front of the group and we have to yell, "I reclaim my power," and these like things that group, like large group trainings and seminars and things that people do, and these that definitely form cults.
Yeah.
So I got this strange vibe from them, and also the teacher. Well, I wouldn't say okay. So there's a little bit strange, but I don't want to say they're a cult.
Sure.
I'm not really saying that,
Yeah.
but they were enough for me to feel skeptical about it. Where I'm like, you know what, I'm kind of like I've gotten what I needed out of this. I'm ready to move on. But I will say though that the main person, Lavendar is her name. She has this story of how she learned of the term starseed. She's the one that coined it. Um, I believe she's the one that coined it. And she like spent some time in the pyramid of Egypt with these crystals and had this like spiritual connection. And she was told that she was going to identify starseeds across the world and bring them together, and then sort of like turn them on to like fulfill their purpose. And they were supposed to like leave crystals around the whole world. And she gave us all these little crystals that she had that were charged up in the Giza pyramid. I mean, it's pretty bizarre stuff. But
Interesting.
everybody that I'm hanging out with is like, it's like spiritually curious, and they're kind of like, I'm a starseed. Like, everyone's had mystical experiences to some degree,
Yeah.
and we're all kind of like fascinated.
Trying to get some answers potentially, or
Here to get some answers, meet some people. I thought for sure I was like in this mode where I was going to meet a girl that was going to be like twin flamey, a
yeah,
twin
yeah.
flame type person. I thought I was really in this like, I feel like I'm going to meet somebody. So I kind of had my eyes peeled. And so there was a couple girls at the event that I thought, I was like, is she going to be the person that I meet? Is she going to be the person? And we definitely had some chemistry there, but nothing ever came of it. But it was that moment where I started to sense that like the person that I'm supposed to be with is about to come into my life at some point, like my next
Yeah.
partner, whoever that may be.
So after this, where you go? Did you find a place to live back in Ohio? You go back to Ohio after your was it Crystal Quest? I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
Crystal Quest.
Yeah, so on the way back from the Crystal Quest, I drove through Dayton, Ohio, and which is southwest of where I lived before, Southwest Ohio. I had a couple buddies that lived there, and they were like, "Hey, you should move to Dayton. This is a great town, great place." And I was like, "All right, okay, I'll consider it." Went back to my parents' house, to settle down a little bit before I moved anywhere, and the Dayton kept coming up, and then my friend was like, "Hey, I got a contact at the apartment complex where I live. I put her in touch with you." So she texted me. She said she's got a place for me. It was like $640 a month. I was like, "It sounds great. All right, it sounds affordable." Well, I didn't have any other options, so I just said I'm going to go with this because at least when I move there, there's some people I know, and I won't be just going to a brand new place with nothing to do and nobody I know. So I took advantage of the fact that I got this referral, moved down to Dayton, and so a couple of my friends lived there. We would get together occasionally and talk and stuff, but really they were kind of hands off. They didn't. It's not like we hung out every weekend or anything like that. But it was more like they brought me to Dayton, and it's kind of like, all right, now I'm on my own.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and as we talk through this, I do want to get back to what we were saying in the beginning as far as reflecting on where we were at. But I think at least for me, it sounds like, the journey that you took starting at Go Media, kind of realizing a dream of, or maybe not a dream is the right way to put it. I don't need to put words in your mouth, but you've got this new big open world of design. You're an artist. You're equipped with skills from college. You've made a choice to get out of 3D, get into more design like all this, up through meeting your then wife to a divorce, spiritual awakening. Like that's a big journey. There's a lot of ups and downs from that, as far as is almost like getting kicking yourself out of the house and going like, okay, I'm going to go be a man now. And So when I think about you're finishing up your Crystal Quest, and like you said, maybe the Starseed thing, got a little bit of doubts about it along the way. Where how I know that there's a lot of detail in there, but maybe briefly, where does that leave you then from then till now, as far as like where do you think you found yourself up until when you and I were talking? Money's changed, jobs are around. Are you bouncing around like just small little piddly jobs, freelancing here and there, taking on some big jobs? What was that like?
So yeah, this is a great question, and so I moved to Dayton in 2018, and it's 2024 now, and I'm still in Dayton. I'm still in Centerville. Um, Now I met Kara in 2019. So Kara's my current partner, and
Yeah.
we've been
Where did
together
you guys date?
since 2019. We met online on a dating
Oh,
site.
okay.
Yeah, and she was from Cincinnati, so she was about an hour drive back and forth.
Oh,
So we would
gotcha.
visit
Yeah.
each other. Now the thing is, how did I get from moving to Dayton to where I'm at today? Like, what's happened? There really hasn't been a lot that's happened as far as like external. There's been no fancy road trips, no amazing travel. And in fact, I feel like it's been quite the opposite. It's been like a shutdown of all of this like external ambition and a real focus on solitude and really doing a lot of healing because, you know, no longer was I actively traveling and meeting girls and doing any of the stuff. It was like really very isolated time by myself. And when Kara and I got together in 2019, both of us were travel like we really like to travel and we really wanted to travel together. And we took a trip up to Portland for a few days, and that was like our first big trip together. And she was getting ready to go to Italy and do like a big digital nomad thing. We had this like inside joke that we were digital nomads, and we're just like we're in location independent. We had this like vision. We were going to travel around the country and work on our laptops, and we would see the sights and see the world. But the life and the universe had different plans for us because as soon as she books her trip to Europe, COVID happens
Oh,
and
yes.
it shut everything down. And she was able to get a refund, fortunately, for her trip to COVID. But like I had been,
To COVID?
what's that?
You said she canceled her trip to COVID?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
She canceled because of COVID.
Oh,
She was able to get a refund on her trip. Yeah. And so
oh,
she couldn't do that anymore. But she had also had these dreams of getting an RV, traveling around the country, travel. So much of that. Now, both of us are very experienced. Like, we've been a lot of places, but like, how
yeah.
much is enough? How much travel is enough? Like,
Yeah.
and I would feel unsettled just being in my own body. It's like I had to get out there and do something. Otherwise, I feel like, what am I doing? Um, so my time in Dayton has been like, no, we're shutting all that off. Like, you're not going to be able to do any of that. And you have to focus on you and me being me, being myself without a girl in my life, without any of this. And I spent the first year in Dayton doing that. I went on a few dates through, and I was like, what am I doing? Every time I go on a date, I'm like intermingling myself with somebody else's life. And it's like not working out. I don't like it. I don't want to. So I swear it off. And it wasn't until like, I don't know, sometime in 2019 where I felt like getting back on a dating site and just seeing what was out there. And, Kara and I started writing back and forth, and we had these like really long email exchanges that were very in sync with each other and our paths and what we were doing with our life and everything. And so
Yeah.
we just had this really good intellectual, spiritual connection that we wanted to pursue and take it really slow. So we weren't going to rush into anything and really take it mindful and slow. That it wasn't about meeting anybody to fill your cup or to meet the unmet emotional needs that you feel, but somebody to kind of grow independently like together, but independent, like spiritual partners that are both doing individual spiritual work for themselves and for God and for who they're meant to be, but getting a chance to do it in a supportive environment and to maybe grow and heal in a brand new way that doesn't require us to travel all over the place. I don't really know, but that's where we ended up. And as far as work goes, Zach, work, I got really fed up with work. And to be honest, this whole I was like trying to hustle up until this point. I'm just doing Starseed Supply. I'm still trying to hustle and sell my digital products and my books. And I was going to events in Austin. I tried to go to a couple events when I moved to Dayton. Um, the guys my friends that brought me into Dayton had great connections with like music venues and events and stuff. So they were like hooking me up. I was getting opportunities. But when I would go do these opportunities, like selling my goods at my Starseed Supply goods at an event, entrepreneur meetup, business meetup, I just felt like I don't want to be here. I hate this stuff. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm like, I feel like I'm going back in time to an old version of me that's like, I don't need this. I don't want this. Everybody's like all passionate about starting a business. All these like young graphic designers, entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs, and they're talking about marketing and they're talking about getting their name out there. I'm like, ugh, boring. Like this is so not me right now. So I'm like, we even scheduled a workshop for my book. There was a cool little boutique down near downtown that was going to host an event for me to talk about habit change and waking up early, and I would get to lecture about my book and maybe sell some copies. We scheduled that. We planned it. Even printed flyers and posted them around Dayton. And then I'm like, I just can't do this, man. I'm getting the strong vibe that I'm like, this feels wrong to me. I can't do it. So we ended up canceling it. And so it's like I was shutting down opportunities. I would occasionally get a freelance project and I would do it, like some band logo or some album artwork, and I would love to do those packages, those jobs for them. But I would also get this feeling of like, yeah, I got the money, but like now I have to do the work, and why does it feel like I'm whipping a horse that's really, really tired? A horse that just like is so tired of running that, and it hates me.
Yeah.
It is so fed up with how I keep forcing it to do this thing. It's like it doesn't want to do it anymore. So Dayton this time here is characterized by that, and there's like a lot of healing, a lot of really
it's almost
affection.
discovery. Tell me if this resonates with you, because it's been a vibe for me, and it sounds similar to what you're describing. Is that I was like, look, that all, in some ways it excites a part of my brain that is like, oh, there's endless opportunities, and if you go out there and hustle and think about what you could be doing, and it could blow up into this, and it's like that. If I was 20 years old, maybe that would sound great, but that's not what I'm about. Like, that's not what I want to do anymore. But I think at first, that's still a part of me. And I still remember that, of being like, if I had some of the opportunities that I have now when I was 20 years old, things could have been very, very different. Where it was like, I'd get this big client. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got work from Microsoft. This is crazy. And then I'm like, go and do it. And I'm like, yeah, that was fine. That was great. But at the end of the day, even amongst artists and all of that, it reminds me of things in the video world that I had people tell me. It's like, oh, but I got this broadcast. Don't you want to get your stuff broadcast? I'm like, I want to get terrible work broadcast. No, that sounds even worse. Just because it's on TV doesn't make the work good. And in the industry, nobody cares if your work was on TV or not. They care if the work was good. Nobody cares what magazine this was in or what that hit. If it's bad work, it looks like bad work. If it's good work, then, oh, okay, great. This is some of the best work I've ever seen. Yeah, I did it for this crappy up and coming band or something like that. That doesn't matter. And so it was speaking to that, where that 20-year-old in me was so excited to get going and had all of the energy and the drive to hustle. But nowadays I'm like, it also at the end of the day was not as fulfilling as some ways I wanted it to be. And so I look back and I'm like, am I just trying to chase this dream that I had then that I don't really have a desire for? So where do I want to be? It's not that job anymore. It's not what I wanted when I was 20 years old. Was it kind of that type of thing where you're like, maybe at one point I wanted this, but not anymore?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because back then when you're 20 and you're up and coming, you're trying to get these big name clients, and you're trying to like leverage their brand recognition for your own clout, for your own self. And like, if I can put this in my portfolio, then I might get this other bigger job. And I just remember like my whole time working at Go Media and up and coming was like, we just wanted to work with Nike and, Microsoft or any of these big companies so that we can have a claim to fame, and we can like say that we did it and have a really put our name on things and put ourselves out there. All that. And I would go to these business meetups here in Dayton and stuff, and a lot of the people had that energy, and I just didn't have it. And I'm like, I kind of have this like rebellious anti-energy where I'm like, I don't want to do any of that shit. I'm swiping all that to the side. It's like, because I am onto something else that's like more meaningful and more important. And but it definitely conflicted with my need to make money and my need to do all of that. And I was always worried about where my money's going to come from. And occasionally I would get a freelance project and I'd be so grateful. And I would really want to make something cool for this band or this artist. And I ended up doing cool work. But Zach, it was harder than it used to be because I
Like,
felt like my skills aren't as polished as they used to be. I was out of practice. I, I'm starting to feel like a has been. Feeling irrelevant. Like my ego's taking a hit, and I'm trying, my prices are lowering because I don't really believe in myself anymore.
yeah,
Um, and how do I sell that stuff when when I spend most of my time not focusing on becoming a better artist or designer? I'm focused on like this inner work and healing from, childhood trauma, healing from all of this stuff. That's the stuff that I'm reading about on a daily basis. I care about the truth. I care about all of the spiritual stuff. And so when Kara and I got together, her and our relationship became my most important thing in my life. It was like that's what really mattered. I wanted to focus on that. I wanted to focus on the health of our psyche, of our souls. Kara has the stuff that she struggles with, that she's going through. It's very relatable to the stuff I go through. And so we are bouncing stuff off each other. It's like we are growing and learning, and neither one of us has been attracted to the rat race, So
yeah.
yeah, so from my time in Dayton again, Zach, it's like this crucible of love, of truth, and our relationship is a big part of how we are growing and developing. The stuff that you can only do in a relationship, with another person. Like,
Yeah. So when you went into it, say by yourself, did you go into it with the intention of, I need to take some time and be alone? Kind of like, I've got to do that. I've been chasing this, whatever this is forever, spirituality, girls, what have you, money even, or whatever experiences, travel was, or was it just more accidental where it was like, well, I finished up this trip, I needed a place to live, and it just kind of worked out that way? Or did you go into it with the intention of, I need to figure myself out?
yeah, like all of that, all of those trips had that intention of like meeting me, meeting God, meeting who I really was. And by the time I did all that traveling, I was burnt out on the traveling and I was like ready to call it quits. I'm like, I need a place to crash consistently and really let myself rest because I've been running for like that the gear that I had to be in to try to book travel and stuff. It was starting to just like feel not worth it. And much like all the energy you spend into business and design and stuff, it's just like eventually it just becomes like it's not worth the squeeze anymore. Like it's not as fun, it's not as rewarding. You
Did
just
you
are
ever
going through the
have
motions.
Did you ever have a vibe at all? Like, I don't know if I've actually had this or not, but the thought has popped into my brain that, sometimes I come up with, don't get me wrong, I like doing creative endeavors. I like doing creative work and things like that. But it makes me think of sometimes a lot of life or hustle for creative or hustle for a job or hustle for this, and this is that I'm like, am I just running from something in myself that I'm like, I've got to go prove this, I've got to go prove that, or I've got to go do. It's like I don't know sometimes if I honestly believe any of this, or if that's honestly what I want. But it's like, well, instead of talking to myself or really doing some work, sometimes I was like, oh, I'll use this work or this creative endeavor as a way to run away because everybody says they're so proud of me and oh, this is so cool that you get to work on all of this. And I'm like, and then you come out, like you said, at the end of the day, where I was like, sure, I did some jobs with some big name clients that I would have killed for when I was younger. But I'm like, don't get me wrong, it's nothing against those clients. It was great. It was fine. But at the end, I was just like, yeah, I mean, I went and did that. Now it didn't fill my cup anymore. I didn't discover who I was because I did a job for Microsoft. Like that didn't all of a sudden like, well, my life is finished now. And, then somebody hands me a manual and says, here's what you go do now. Like it didn't answer any questions for me, I guess. So it makes me think it's like, I wonder if I'm doing some of these things sometimes just to run away from because I'm uncomfortable that I don't know what to do and I don't know where to go. Or what the right answer is. So everybody else seems really impressed with this. Do you ever have feelings along that? I mean, I'm sure it speaks to the imposter syndrome sometimes, but I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, sure. I think, especially, I can say, especially men, in general, like identify with themselves with what they do and the quality and the amount of work that they're doing. It's like they're only as good as what they can do or build or provide. But I think though we all know we have this like kernel inside of us that says like there's more to life, that there's something more true within, that you in the doing can only get so much like reward and so much feedback, whether it's um, having a good client, a big client like that tells you that you did a good job, and having your name seen on the big screen or whatever as credits, that you got to be a part of that. I do think all of that sort of helps build up our ego and our sense of self, and we feel proud of it, and we feel like we're really making our mark on the world. But for me, it's like I started to become disillusioned, where that ego started to feel hollow and false, and it wasn't fulfilling. But I knew there was something deeper that was like my true self, if you will. So that was the guiding light that I was nurturing through all of my travel and all of my trips, and realizing that some of my workaholism is driven in this like uncomfortable. My discomfort with sitting with myself alone, not doing anything, because I feel like I'm lazy, I'm not being responsible, I'm not contributing, and someone's going to either get mad at me or I'm going to fail, fuck up, drown. I have to keep swimming, otherwise I will drown and I'm going to die. So the spiritual practice is like, all right, let's face death. Let's face exactly that and go right into the belly of the beast, into what is really real, and then come out the other side. That's the adventure.
Yeah. Well, and as we look back on the show, for me personally, I think the show itself has brought back a lot of those feelings or thoughts in kind of a little like incubator or accelerator, where it was things that maybe I've thought about or considered over years or decades is now like weeks and weeks and weeks, where it has been an interesting endeavor, especially with, as we talk about the importance of work and the hustle. Is there, I would be lying if I didn't say I had feelings that even when I had a job, I was like, I don't know, what am I doing this job for? Because like you, it sounds like when you met Kara and started having some real experiences in a relationship with her, with another human being, it is times like that where it's just, like you said at one time, where it's like the hair kind of stands up on your arms at times. So it's like when I have those key moments, with my kids or with my wife, and I'm like, this is what I need to be focused on. This is where I want to be. And so losing the job and then worried about that I'm letting them down, and then now having a job and working again, it's weird that burden goes away. But then I'm left with, my wife told me, so my oldest son does online school, and my wife was working from home one day, and I had to go to the office recently, I think like last week or something. She had texted me and said, yeah, he woke up today and said, I'm going to have to get used to dad not being here every day. And I'm like, that was brutal for me in some ways, is that I'm like, it's really nice and sweet. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad that he was here. But it's like, we'd wake up and have breakfast together, and sit and chat about his day. And, I'm sure for him, it's a roller coaster. Sometimes like dad won't get off my back about school and all this, but then there's nice times where I'm driving him to his hockey practice, and all of this. I'm like, I don't get those moments anymore. And I don't know if I enjoyed it. No, meaning that I know I enjoyed it. I don't know if I took the time to enjoy it, as much as I wish that I would have, where I could sit here and reflect and be like, you don't have a job right now. And so even though that you're hustling, can you just sit back and enjoy this moment with your son, with your wife, and take all this in? And I know that I talked about that a little bit, where I was like, I don't know if I'm enjoying things. It's difficult for me to enjoy this because I feel like I'm letting them down. And it reminds me of what you talked about and what we talked about earlier of, going home to your parents' house. That they're fine with it. They, as a parent, they can go, it's fine. You're welcome here anytime. Do what you need to do, figure this out. And this should be a place for you to relax. And yet you're not relaxing. You're not enjoying that time to have that kind of safe space or sanctuary that, my wife especially would be like, it's okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to figure this out. We have options. We have this and that. I'm like, no, we don't. This is going to shit. This is going down, and I've got to do this, and I've got to stay up all late. Is that I wish that I would have taken time to enjoy not having a job now, which sounds crazy because, you know, I was working so hard to get it, but I'm like, I wish I would have taken more time to enjoy it.
Yeah.
What were some of your thoughts? I've got a bunch of others, but what were some of your thoughts as far as where we were when we started versus where you are now?
Well, Zach, first I wanted to say that, like, you know, I've got a lot of compassion for what you just shared because, like, you know, you're speaking a truth that is universal. Like, anybody listening to this can probably relate to that, you know, and that, um, when you're in it, you can't really appreciate it because you're filled with anxiety and fear and uncertainty and this sense of duty and responsibility because like you don't think it can even happen if you don't do anything to make it happen. So it's like, well, I can enjoy this now, but like I have to like I gotta leave soon. I gotta avoid this. I have to go hustle. I gotta go out there and figure this out. So you can actually enjoy it. And then of course once you get the job, now that burden of having to find it is gone. But now you're like, well, now I wish I could have. You see back in the past of all of the times I wish you could have been more present for it and really appreciated it, you know. And it's, you know, I struggle with that too because it's like I've been safe, I've survived, I have not run out of money, but I've always felt like I was about to, and I would always be carrying this extra like level, this like sense of unease and sense of dread. It's like, you know, my head's this far above water, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm afraid of drowning. What happens if I don't? It's like our biggest fear is like really letting go. And I have this vision of like of what a lazy guy is, right? And that's how I feel like people see me when I'm not doing the work. It's like I'm sitting on my ass, I'm eating Doritos, playing Fortnite, like I'm lazy as fuck. And like my dad's yelling at me or something like that, and he hates me because I'm not doing anything. I need to be taking responsibility, and if I show any sort of like lack of interest in that, I'm being just irresponsible. I'm being a doofus. I'm being a lazy bastard. I don't know. It's like I just think that like boys and people grow up like that, where they're just being kicked in the ass constantly for like relaxing and not doing anything. Like, and I worked my ass off at McDonald's. But like if you pause for a moment, it's like if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. It's like no, you can't take a break at all. And so like we talked about this last episode, you know, could we ever get a break from work? And so when we do get a break, we can't enjoy it because there's like the looming tension of something bad that might be happening around the corner. And I really have a lot of compassion for that, Zach. And I just feel like, boy, I see you there, and I see it in myself. And if I can just like hold love for that and just like feel that like later, you know, in the coming weeks after we do this podcast, it's something I really want to nurture and to hold space for and give love to, because I want to heal that dynamic. I want to heal that within myself and with all men, if that's possible. But
what you
I know
said,
it's an exaggerated task. But.
Yeah, two things you said. Another Fight Club quote in there, which I love.
Did I?
Yeah, the "let go" was one that was, you know, that was a huge big theme in the movie. Was all we need to do is just let go. When he's sitting in the car and the car's driving and he's trying to control the car and Tyler's yelling at him, "Let go, just let go." And and sometimes we need to do that, because I think the weird thing is that for me, a lot of the time, and maybe even human beings in general, our emotions are not a light switch that I can just turn on and off. And I wish that it was, where it was like, okay, turn that off. And right now you're going to enjoy this. You're going to be with your family. You're going to have the best day of your life. And all of that. Like, some of my favorite times with my family is dinner time, and we usually play a game at dinner. So we'll bring a game down and play as we all eat a meal together with kids, my mom, and if my mother-in-law's over, it's great. And it's amazing. And I'm like, this feels right. This feels good. But when I don't have a job, it's kind of like one emotion going through it. Even though it is a roller coaster ride and there's ups and downs, is that I can't turn that off and go sit and enjoy this and then go down in my office. And while my job search is going, it's like, all right, now you can turn on your anxiety a little bit, get that drive going, get that motivation, so that you're going to sit down here, you're going to focus, you're going to work hard. And then when you walk out that door, that gets turned off. And I wish that I could do that, and I can't, because it does make that difficult to go, you know, when I'm sitting with my family, I'm still thinking about a job. I'm still thinking about remaining focused and doing all this. And now that I have a job, I'm like, oh, now I actually have to do it. how am I going to do all of that? How am I going to pull this off? And is this, where I want to be? Is this what I want to do? And like I said, kind of like the lie, it's like, well, you said this is what you wanted and you're doing it and you've worked your whole life to work like this. Is that what you want to do? And you're like, I don't know. Is it? And having those conversations with yourself as far as like, I still don't know if I am. However, I think I've got a lot more of the maturity I'm asking myself questions that I don't think I was asking before. Um, based off of some of our conversations before and understanding your situation more that I'm like, yeah, but I mean, look at the way that Jeff is going and handling through it. And, at the same time, I feel a lot of compassion for your situation and your stress. We're going through a lot of that together. Like, where's my next paycheck going to come from? How am I going to pay for this place that I have? How am I going to get food and do that? And, for you, got a girlfriend, I have a wife. What are they going to think of me? And all of this. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but we've made it through it. We've had some good times. We did go through and get this podcast out because I'm not a person that's good at getting things started. And so I'm happy that I did because I was like, I don't know what it was and who knows where this goes or what it means. But I was like, feel like I need to go do this, and talk about this and connect here. And I'm happy that you kind of felt the same way as well. Cause, it's something that I was thinking about something earlier. So sorry to derail it a little bit, but you brought something up earlier when you were talking and you were saying that you took some photos and you posted them up there for free stock images. The thing that's been interesting for me is a lot of the stuff or the story that I feel like I need to tell, I don't want any money for it. I don't have any desire to do that. But the stuff that I'm most passionate about is something like this, where the podcast, where it's like, I didn't get into this because I needed to make $5. Obviously, if we turned this into something that was making money and we could, do this full time, that would be great. And we talked about that. But I was like, I wasn't coming into this with like, Jeff, hey, how do we make money off of this? The stuff that feels fulfilling to me is not because I need to make money off of it, but it's like, there are some stories or projects where I'm like, could we just go shoot this movie? Or do this little scene? Like, I feel drawn to this little scene. I just want to go make it. And, people are like, oh, well, you could sell it this way and sell it this way. I'm like, sure, maybe I could, but can I just go make the thing first before I start thinking about the money? I just want to make it. I want to do it because I'm passionate about it, not because this has to be, your time is worth so much money and don't, you have people telling you, don't get away with doing things for free. And I'm like, can I please just do it? That there's plenty of the most fulfilling things that I've done have not been for money. And all of that. And so same with this podcast where I'm like, it's nice to have something where I don't have to worry at the end of the day, how much did I make off of this? Did I sell this much afterwards? Was it successful? Was it not? Where I was like, I can just sink my teeth into something that was fun and enjoyable and a real human connection. So how have you felt since we started it, or can you relate to that at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. I felt like I'm glad you reached out for this whole podcast thing, because I've been wanting to do a podcast, looking for a co-host, because I feel like it's hard for me to just go out there and speak by myself into the void.
Yeah, me too.
And even knowing what to say. Like, I've got a lot that could be said, but it needs to be in conversation and have a reason and a meaning. So like, getting to show up and do a podcast with you is so much more than just doing the end product. It's like we get a chance to have a real time conversation, and that, oh great, we get to record it, and we're making it available to people to see. And kind of, I listen to so many podcasts myself. It has really helped me. And so much of it has been free. And I've gotten to take advantage of the teachings. Even there were unintentional teachings that people weren't necessarily knowing what they were expressing, but for whatever reason, energetically, emotionally, it was connecting with me on some level based off of whatever it was I was going through. I think I ended up finding it through synchronicity, not through marketing, and so my connection is through my spirit. And then I told you that, like, sometimes I get media sent my way that feels like it's been kind of through grace or something that I get to watch. So like, I hope that this podcast is that for somebody else out there who happens to come across it, not through marketing or whatever, but it's like, it just happens to hit the right time and place and they get to hear it. So, it is a free product, but it is something that we were doing for free, but like we're getting to work out something energetically and emotionally that we're going through that we need to talk about. And maybe my goal of it was maybe by the end of it that we'll figure out where we ought to go. I was stuck in the beginning and I'm like, maybe if I just talk to Zach for 12 weeks, I'll talk myself into it. I'll recognize, oh gosh, Jeff, you really care about all of these things. Like, good thing you got to vent about the stuff that you don't like because that path wasn't for you. But through the talking about it, you got to really discover what the path was for you. And I would feel confident about taking that path. And so where am I now? I feel like I've come a long way. I have less money than I did when I started the podcast, but I feel like less worried about it. And I've started my newsletter in November, and I've been sending out weekly newsletters, and then I have doing this podcast with you. So I'm putting out 2 pieces of content that are from my soul expression, putting it out into the world. And like, I know that will have a reverberating effect somehow. Something's going to bounce back to me, and I find myself in this like web design rabbit hole again, where I'm like thinking that maybe I could end up doing this as a career, but like motivation isn't, oh, maybe if I learn this, I could do it as a career and then make money. It's more like I'm learning it to do my own website so I can improve it, so I can use it as a tool to express myself and make it's a design project. It's like something I'm doing for free. I just want to do it better. It's like just that it's scratching an itch by itself that maybe and if I get good at this, good enough, like you said, you might need a website. Kara needs a website. Like people I know need websites, and I could have built it for them before, but now I'm developing real skills that are actually like worth money. And I'm starting to understand that the skills I actually do have are really worth something. And I shouldn't be charging $250 or $500 for a website. Like people that have the same skill set as me are charging $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, maybe not to their friend, but like, the skill set is valuable.
Yeah.
But like I often don't think of myself as having a valuable skill set because I'm so used to working with clients that are like upset with my price or I'm lowballing myself. So I don't know. I do feel like I've grown a lot, Zach, and I'm losing my train of thought. But
no, I like what you said earlier as well, because it reminded me of a quote that I love. That's related to a journey of self-discovery, and it was actually it was Matthew McConaughey that said this, or somebody said it to him. But read it said, "Knowing who you are is hard." Knowing who you are is hard. So eliminate who you're not, and you'll find yourself where you want to be. Is that sometimes it is say, where should I go? Who am I? And all this. It's like, okay, well, if we can knock down a few things like don't like that. Don't like that. All of a sudden, a little pathway begins to open up like, oh, okay, so what about something down here? What about that? How do I go? And I think it becomes less daunting in that way. And if I try to do that, I'm not always great at remembering that, especially in those times of, just recently when I've got a lot of self-doubt as far as I don't think anybody wants me anymore. It has been kind of like just what you were saying before. It's like, I'm not good at this. Nobody wants me to. There's no jobs out there. There's these young, hungry kids that are doing it for half the price. I don't want to. Do I need to be doing it for half the price now? Where does that leave me? I think this industry is going away. Just any thoughts of self-doubt is that, sometimes you think where you want to go, and you're like, well, I'm this person, but the path has changed. You go, I just want to keep going straight, but the path is going right. And it's like, well, I thought I wanted to be that guy, and now it's been taken away from me. So who am I? And you kind of got to go through that journey again to say, yeah, it's not the good old days. And, I think it's times like that for me of why I brought up before. I was like, I don't know if that's really what I wanted to begin with. I have the power of retrospect now. Did I enjoy that hustle? Was that the times when I look back at my life and I go, that was the most meaningful to me? I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, if I look back on meaningful times of my life, it's usually with my wife, with my family, with my kids, other people sharing an experience, something like that. It doesn't come back to when I was working. And so again, it makes me realize that I wish I could turn that on and off, that it's to anybody listening, it's a million times easier said than done. I'm not saying that I have the answer of how to do that, but I wish I would have enjoyed my time more when I wasn't working. Um, not to say, obviously, I found my job. I'm happy that I did that. I'm proud that I was able to do that. And I came out on top of where I was. I have that tendency in my life, which I need to be thankful for. I don't know how it works out this way, but I tend to fail up. Which is in the times when I feel the most down, I come out of it better than I was before. And so, not going into too much detail, but I did come out with a better job than I had before, than the job I got let go from. So I don't know how that happens or how that works out. I know that a lot of it has to do with when you see a door, you need to walk through it. It's not necessarily that it was like, oh, this or that, but it is kind of seizing those opportunities again. Like you said, taking train wreck in the car and taking a chance that maybe this is going to lead somewhere. You're leaving that door open that this might be a part of something. And so I think I have a pretty good way of doing that of like, I don't know, maybe this is an opportunity. Let's just open up that door and see where it leads. I try to do that myself. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, at the end of the day, you always have a good story to tell. But yeah, it's been an interesting reflection of who I am, what my priorities are, and where I feel like I'm a little bit closer of knowing where I want to go and what I want to get out of life, and hopefully a little bit more comfortable just with who I am, where I can maybe flip that light switch a little bit better to go like, you really don't need to stress out about this right now. You can sit back and just enjoy this time with your wife and have a good evening as well. So yeah, I think those are some of my thoughts in it.
Yeah, that's great, Zach. And it reminds me of this quote from this YouTuber named Maggie Murphy. She talks about Neville Goddard and law of attraction stuff and a little bit of that. But she has this interesting thing. She's like, okay, screw manifesting, screw all of that stuff. Like the things that you think you want are probably driven by some anxiety that you're trying to relieve and some unmet need that you're trying to compensate for. So she's like, forget about trying to manifest that new job or this more money. She's like, whatever it is that you're like obsessed with, that's really bothering you, whether it's like, I need to get more money and I can't get it. She's like, just set the intention that worry will be resolved in some way. Like you don't have to worry about how to resolve it, but that it will get resolved and that you're not worried about it anymore. So whether you think that the action that you need to take is what you think is going to resolve that worry, sometimes doesn't resolve it. So it's like, sometimes the thing that you think you want isn't really the thing that you ought to be doing. So that's why you let go, you kind of surrender and like say, okay, I just want to not be worried about this. I'll let whatever happens in my life fall into place where that I end up in a place where I'm not worried about it. Okay, so I'll let that out. The second thing that she recommended was set the intention that you're going to be so excited about something that it's like maybe like when you discovered that like a certain technology existed that you never knew and it was a huge rabbit hole for you, or a certain genre of music that you've never heard before that it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I never thought this existed, but I get to go here and it's like all encompassing and you're so excited about it. So set that intention that that thing you're worried about gets resolved and that you spend a lot of time, you're so excited about something that you don't even really care because you're so engrossed in this new thing that you're interested in. And so I was like, all right, so I did that. So I'm at this place now where I'm like, well, I'm not really worried about money because, well, I have my retirement, my IRA sitting there. I'm like, I can technically pull from that. Yes, I'll get penalized for an early withdrawal, but I feel like I like the direction I'm headed in, that it's almost like, well, I'm willing to invest in myself, that it will pay off somewhere I'll be able to repay it back. Whatever it is, the penalty, it'll like, I just got to trust this, keep going with the flow. If I need more help to pay my bills by taking money out of my retirement, I think I'm going to be fine. There's a part of me that's like, never do that. It's like, it's a waste of money. You shouldn't be doing that to pay your rent. It's like, no, don't do that. But I'm like, okay, I'm in this situation. I'm following this path. I need to keep going, stay the course. Going out there and doing DoorDash does not seem like my path. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. So I'm going to continue with this like web design stuff and with this podcast and my newsletter. You and I've got an idea for a new podcast thing that we want to do after this, which I really hope that we do. That can be something that makes us money or something.
Sure.
down the line, who knows? Who really knows? But it's something that I feel like it's momentum. We built some momentum by doing this podcast every week and me doing my newsletter every week, that it's like building a creative momentum that wasn't there, but now it is 12 weeks later. So now we can we got a snowball. It's starting to build. Now we can work with it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like too, as much as this has not been true, and I've been somewhat disappointed in myself sometimes of the work that I put into this podcast, that I'm like, well, the other option is that you did nothing. And I was like, you do need to hustle a little bit. Feels good. This is something that you like. And I'm like, it is sometimes, again, what people talk about a lot of times with the gym, where I'm like, man, I'm really happy that I went. I'm really happy that I did that. I was like, all I need to do was stick my foot in the door and go and do it. Getting myself to put my foot in the door, sure, that was the hard work, but the more that you do it, the easier that it does become. And happy that you're doing it as well. Cause yeah, I'm kind of reflecting on like the little bit of the break that we're about to have here. And while I'm happy about it, I'm also terrified of it too. Cause I'm like, I'm like, let's keep this momentum going. Like, I don't want to lose that momentum at all of what we got. And I guess I would say thank you too for everybody that has listened to us, especially family, friends, comments that we've gotten back. They really have meant the world, because Jeff, you sent some recently, which I just want to at least acknowledge on some of them. I got a comment that happy that I got a job. Thank you for doing that. So people that are commenting, it's good. Some words of encouragement for us to keep them going. Somebody had asked, and so maybe this is a good way for us to finish out here. And the person that told me congrats on the job, that's right. They had said that they're waiting to get laid off from theirs. All I can say is maybe that I'm happy and maybe sad for you, but getting laid off was not the worst thing that happened to me, and gave me a lot of perspective. So if it does go that way, hopefully look at that as a positive of a life journey. But got questions from the same person that says, and you wrote back in a comment, but I thought it'd be a fun way to end out the episode of, they said, Jeff, do you ever consider switching careers, going back to school? I'm thinking about the same thing. Wonder if I just tapped out on my current career path. We kind of just spoke about that a little bit now, but maybe that could be a fun way for us to end this episode out.
Yeah, I think about going back to school a lot, because there's a lot that I want to learn, and sometimes I miss the environment of being in a school where you're just focused on learning the thing, and then you're with a bunch of people in your cohort that is at the same level as you, and it's like you're all doing this project together, and you're in a structured environment where you can get feedback from people, and but the thing is, it is so expensive. It's thousands and thousands of dollars to go do that, and I'm like, I'm like looking about how I'm going to pay my rent. So I just don't have the money. So I don't know how I would finance it. I thought about going to school for music production, for web design. Sometimes I think about, what if I went back to school for some sort of therapy or psychology, where I could be helping people on a more emotional level, but I don't really feel any excitement with that. Even though I do find myself in that position where I'm helping somebody with that, I just don't feel the draw to go become certified or any of that. I still love my music production and my web design, my techie creative output. And if I can do that better and still nurture that part of me, I feel like I'd be happy and satisfied. So that's why going back to school for music production felt like a good idea at the time, because I'm like, shit, I'll be in an environment with a bunch of other people making cool music, and we can collaborate and we can have connections, and who knows what would happen. But that was going to be $100,000. And I was like, well, I can withdraw my entire retirement savings out and just dump it into that. And I told, that's so funny. I told Kara, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to LA, maybe, just this idea. She's like, what? And then it was at the beginning of a family gathering, and her family had just arrived when I said that, and we never even got a chance to resolve that tension. She's like, what? You kind of drop this on me before they get here?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I literally just watched a YouTube video this morning, and I'm like, it's just the idea popped into my head.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I'm not spending $100,000 to go back to music school to hang out with a bunch of Gen Z 20-year-olds making trap music and I don't even know what, but the idea has occurred to me, but I'm in this page building 101 course. It's free. There's so much free learning. There's so much free out there. I don't know. So yes and no. So that's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
I think it's one of those where it would be weird to not constantly think about that. Like, I think that's a pretty healthy sign to say, hey, am I doing this right thing? Do I want to go back to school? And I think people that are just passionate about the world in general probably always think about going to school. Like, heck, I think it would be fun to go back to school and study feudal Japan. Like, doesn't mean that I necessarily want to make a career out of it,
Right.
but I wish I could take like 2 years off and just go study that because I think it's kind of fascinating. Um, and
Hmm.
everything. So, also, for last thing, we normally like to leave with inspirations. But this week I figured, maybe we could touch on a little bit of inspiration, but if it's okay with you, maybe, our favorite moment from the last, 12 weeks, that, maybe was something that you learned or your favorite thing to share, or what was a top moment for you that you're like, that was really cool. That was pretty fun. Um, or even part
Hmm.
of the process, throughout any of this, because I've got a couple.
Well, why don't you go ahead and start, Zach?
Sure.
Because I don't have any ideas yet.
First thing was the music, that you made. That was so
Okay.
awesome. It was so fun. It was so cool. I loved that we had our own theme music. I think we even got some comments on it as well, that people were impressed with the music. So kudos to you. How quickly you spit that out. I'm always really impressed and pissed off at musicians that they can pull something out like that so quickly. I'm a horrible musician, but it's something that I admire so much. I don't have a lot of practice in it, so I can't even really say I'm horrible. I've never really tried that hard. But that was super cool. Also, the artwork, I love the artwork that you did and the labels for all of it. That was cool. And I would say my favorite moment from the series was your McDonald's story. I thought that was
No way. No.
McDonald's story was so much fun. It's such a great, like, open-eyed, just like the world is my oyster, point of view from like a, late teen, early 20s perspective of like, I'm really going places. I'm the top chicken nuggets guy. And then they have the sign on the building, and that hype and that joy from that age is, I think it's something that we all chase, and at the same time find hilarious. So that was one of my favorite stories.
Well, that's cool. I mean, Kara's mom would be thrilled to hear that, Zach, because she loves that story. She's been trying to get me to like go on stage and tell the story in public.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, no, no. I don't want to give her any more ideas. I don't want to go be telling that story on a stage in public. Like, okay, but it's a great story. I did it on the podcast. It's out in public in my own little way. So,
Sure,
um,
exactly. Yeah, it's out there. People can go and get it. I think that was episode 6, I believe. I think it was episode 6. If you missed that, definitely go back and check out the that episode has a lot of little nuggets in it, like all of them do. But that's where the McDonald's story is at. It's a fun one.
so my favorite aspects, I think, well, I do share a lot of what you said with like the music and the graphic design, the art direction for this podcast, because I got a chance to do something for real. Like it was a real project that we were working on together. So it makes me feel like more motivated to actually get back in the design software, get in the music studio, like create something, and it's actually got a real world use for it. Like I created all those thumbnails for YouTube, which I never would have done had I not we had not had this project. So it has like a cohesive, consistent brand with it. We had ideas like we were going to do an intro video or
I
like
still want to
something
do
else
it. I
to it.
might just still do that for fun because I'm disappointed that I didn't. But I was kind of worried. For me, it's always been about time. I think we should bring this up. I know that this episode's going long. We'll figure it out one way or another.
It's the finale. It's
Yeah,
the finale.
it's
We got a lot of
finale.
extra
But it has been weird where it's like trying to stay creative and not being a person that's great at starting things, and then having a family and kids as well, where it's like
time.
there are times when I'm like, oh, I need a break. And it's weird because it's like, this is something that I want to do. I like doing it. And when I dive into it, I have a really, really good time. So it's not even that at all. But we had talked about making an intro for a show that I really wanted to make, had a good idea for it and all that. And then it comes down to actually doing it. I'm like, all right, well, I need to set aside some time where that's kind of a problem with me, is that I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, this is not a job that I'm doing for a client where I've got to find the time that I know that it's going to take. So it's like, okay, well, shooting it, setting it up is going to take at least 30 minutes to an hour. Getting the camera going and all that, getting my angles together, that's going to be like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. So now I'm at an hour and a half. Then I've got to shoot it. That's going to take 30 minutes to an hour to shoot this. Then I have to go bring it into edit. So I'm like, okay, so this is going to take 6 hours. Where do I have 6 hours? I don't have 6 hours sitting around. It's like what you do if you break it down. If you take an hour here and then an hour there and then an hour there, where it's like, okay, well, now my son has to get to track and I want to go watch his track meet. Well, that's 3 hours of my day that's gone. And then, oh, now I've got to worry about dinner and I've got to do that. And so it's something that I still really want to do for myself because I think it's a cool idea. So if randomly we have different videos with an intro in them, eventually that will be wise because I finally got off my butt and did the intro. Anyway, not to cut you off, your favorite stuff. There you go.
No, but that's funny, and definitely look forward to seeing it if you ever do anything. But you bring up a good point though. Like sometimes the projects that we want to do for ourselves, we put on the back burner. We don't prioritize them the same way we'd do if a client was asking us to do it, or if a family member was asking us to do something. I struggle with that too, like putting my own projects first. But like Kara and I've talked about this a lot recently, where she's got some creative work that she wants to get done that she keeps getting the like inspiration will strike and she'll like feel really motivated to do it, but then like life finds a way to get involved and then that inspiration's gone and she's kind of kicking herself, feeling like I wish I would have like made time to do something, you know? But it won't go away. That bug keeps coming back. It like wants to be pursued. So you have to respect it. And so we've talked about it, like put it on the calendar, do some like basically schedule that time for yourself and maybe get somebody else involved that can hold you accountable. Like
Like you? Yeah.
Yeah, like me, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
No, but like, what did we do? Oh, so I needed to record vocals for my own track. Like, this is something new for me. I'm working on this track, and I had used AI vocals in the past to try to like, okay, well, I want to put some lyrics to this and words to it, but I can't sing, so I'm just going to utilize some AI tools and put it in there. And I've had the last 2 songs I made had AI vocals in it, so it's a bit different for me because I mostly make electronic music. But anyway, so I did that, but. There's something part of me that's been itching me. It's like, Jeff, you should put your own voice in it. It's your soul. It's your expression, not the AI vocalist's expression. Like the replay value of listening to the AI track is like very little, even for me, because I know it's like the AI vocalist, even though it sounds great, it's just not me. It's not my soul. So going back and listening to my old Box of Milk records after that whole thing, another thing I'm proud of, by the way, that came out of doing this podcast was me getting all that stuff up there, all those old albums. But doing it, there was a whole album or a bunch of songs scattered around where I did my own vocals. And I decided to put them all on one album and make a whole album dedicated to tracks I did my vocals on. And so listening to that, I'm like, wow, these aren't really very good, but like I still did it and I didn't care. I just like made my own vocal track. Like who cares? But I'm self-conscious of how I sound. Even though Kara has told me that I've got a good voice and I'm like, I don't think I do. But through that and then through some, kind of kicking myself. I'm like, why don't I do it? I'm like, well, I need some time to myself to be able to do this. So like, I don't want anybody around. If I'm going to be recording vocals, I want to make sure she's gone. I want to make sure the neighbors downstairs are gone. So when she was gone recently, I was like, all right, I got time today. This is my chance. Either put up or shut up. I mean, if they're going to do it or not. And so I decided to do it, and I wouldn't have done it if she didn't leave. So it's like she gave me the time. She gave me some space that I had a window. I'm like, I better do something in this window. Otherwise it's going to close. And to make one last point on that, the power of autotune, the power of pitch correction, that has really helped because I can't really sing on key. I don't have the gift, but I can pitch it up and fix it in post. And I'm like, oh, that's the idea. That's how I intended it to sound. There we go. At least it's still me singing it. And it's maybe not everybody's taste, but hey, at least it's me and I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah. And you did it because that reminds me of, I found this thing that one of the ideas that we were talking about for the intro video was a little bit of stop motion work. And I found a plugin that makes regular video look very stop motion-y just by clicking a button. I'm like, that could make my life a lot easier if I just did use this little plugin. So same thing like the autotune, like there's nothing wrong with that. Still did it, still got your vision out there. And all of that. So no, I think you should be proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this guy up?
No, I think, well, one last thing, actually. Yes, I just thought of it. So the other thing that excites me is when we talked about
Yeah.
my out of body experiences, my lucid dreams and stuff, you really seem to light up and get curious about that. And I think that that excites me. And we've talked about this idea of like doing like a 12-week coaching program for you,
Yeah.
where like we're gonna help you dedicate a long time to and a weekly we chat weekly and we talk about it and we coach you. I guide you through it and see if you can have your own out of body experience, or maybe after 12 weeks, who knows who you'll be after 12 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
Like, where will this take you? You know, what will happen if you dedicate 12 weeks and I'm sort of like your mentor, your coach, guiding you along this, and getting to watch that experience will be like super cool for me. And then I told this to Karen. She's like, oh, that needs to be a paid product. Well, what we do is our thing, but like for somebody else, I can sell that product as like as a course.
Yeah.
Here's a real 12-week case study of like a person that's like has gone from like never had anything like that to maybe I did, you know, and then we get to see the process and really talk about the fine-grained details of what that was like. Um, and I think that would be something I could just like package up and sell on my website and make it available to other people. Like that's perfect, brilliant. If we want to do it.
I think so too. And it spoke a lot to me with my wife when I told her the idea. She liked the idea. She wanted to get in on it too, personally. I think I told you that too. She's like, I'd probably be a better subject for this than you would. And so, but I was like, no, it also speaks to, I've been trying to think about something where I was like, I've liked the idea of a packaged course type of thing.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to do anything on, learning video or doing this. And you and I haven't talked about this, but I had a concept for a TV show. So I'm going to say it out to the world so that now if anybody steals it, we can play this back. And there you go. But I had an idea for a TV show that was called Experience. And I liked my idea myself as, the person behind it, but it could really be anybody as you go through, where really exploring, the original idea was exploring all the different ways that experience has different meaning like, oh, you need experience to do this, or what was that experience like? And putting those two things together, and it was taking a person that knew nothing about something and then gaining the experience throughout the ways to know about that, know how to do it, maybe even be able to like teach it back or become somewhat of an expert at it. But then also, what is that experience like to go from not knowing anything about it to now being very educated in it and knowing a lot about it? How has that changed you as a person? What was that experience like? So kind of exploring those different ways. So I've kind of had an idea similar to this for a while. And then, so I was like, when this came up, I was like, I didn't even think about it until just now, which is crazy that I was like, wait, you've kind of wanted to be doing something like this before. And so I think that's another reason why this seems so exciting to me, is that I was like, I like the idea of coming into it with something new. It's a unique voice to tell. And there isn't anything out there like that now, as far as like, I like to see that journey of a person of where were you before and where are you now that you're coming out of it. And I don't think we have enough of that. I mean, you've got the commercialized projects that were, not really like that. Like The Apprentice was out there, was kind of like that in a way of, in The Biggest Loser, they're trying to kind of capture that in a way, but I don't think it's really done in a actual humanistic, effective way as well. So I think it's a fun idea because, yeah, that is something that I know nothing about, that I find fascinating as well, that it's like there's this whole other world out there that I don't know about, that I could learn about just right there. That's how I kind of see that. So, yeah, I think that's cool. A nice little tease for everybody as far as an idea that we're working on here.
That sounds really cool, Zach. And, I kind of like had this idea of you doing like a vlog, personal, private vlog of like after your experience, and then you can like cut it together as like as a little mini video of like, okay, so we're doing the podcast. We talk about it in retrospect, but like in the moment, like a video or experience of like what you're doing.
Totally.
You could put that together.
A big inspiration, for me going through this, actually probably the most accurate. So speaking of inspirations, and as we wrap it up, a recommendation for anybody that's somewhat along these lines, that I was like, man, if we could tap into that vibe or that feeling a little bit, I think we'd be onto something. There's a show called Long Way Down, Long Way Round, and then I think Long Way Up. It's a 3-part series. They're all the same thing. It started off with Ewan McGregor and his best friend, and they take a motorcycle trip around the world. So it's a long road trip, and obviously they have to ferry across the oceans or lakes or stuff like that. But really, they're going to go around the world on a motorcycle. And another one is The Long Way Down, and they start at the northern point of Scotland and finish at the southern point of Africa. And they're on their motorcycles the whole way. And so they did 3 different trips. One was South America, North America. Another one was around the hemisphere of the earth, which was kind of interesting. And another one was Europe through Africa. But those were really like, it was such a fun show for that regard, that it really was like, hey, we're 2 guys. We love motorcycles. We love each other, and we want to experience the world, and let's document this. And then they do a lot of like kind of a little bit of a vlog at the end, or in some episodes as well, as far as like their experiences throughout all of it and what it's been like and how they're feeling about it. And yeah, so that's a cool one that I think we could capture that spirit quite a bit. Could be fun.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Hey, and if your wife wants to get on, she could practice it too, and you could film her. You could play
I even thought about that.
part of the
I was
show.
like, it could be fun to have dueling perspectives, because she's a little
would be
bit
great.
more tuned into this. Like, she's got her own podcast that she
Yeah.
runs as well, and videos that she makes, and a lot of things that you talk about as well, she does as well. She, is studying manifesting, Neville Goddard, stuff like this. She's got a little bit more of a female focus on hers as well. But she's like, it's something that I know a little bit about, but don't know much. But it could be fun to see the dueling perspectives. To see, here's one side of the story, here's the other side of the story as well. And here was my experience, but here was your experience. How we go through it to kind of get a little bit of a yin and yang with it, with the mentor figure up top, trying, giving us sagely advice as we're guided through this journey. I think it's,
Hey, that sounds super fun. You're getting me excited, Zach. So, I hope that we'll take a break, but I hope we get back to it and we end up putting that idea forward or something like it. Yeah.
exactly. Well, and for everybody as well, we don't know if this is necessarily the end of We Should Be Working. It could be. It's a little bit of an era for us, and it is kind of a fun little wrapper where I started with no job and ended with a job. It's a nice little, we have some little continuity there, but it could definitely come back in one way, shape, or form. We'll see this vibe of Jeff and I wasting some time and exploring creator economies and Jeff's career and life journey. But that's all I got. If you want to add anything else, feel free.
No, I mean, that's about all I got. I just want to say, thanks to everybody who's followed us on this journey. Thanks to Kara's mom. She sent us a really beautiful email giving us a lot of good feedback. It was really encouraging. So thank you to the people that have encouraged us as we do this. That really means a lot that, we hear some feedback from the community that you guys are listening and you're paying attention and do want to see more of this. That excites us. And thank you, Zach, of course, for being with me on this journey. And I appreciate your curiosity and your sense of wonder that you talk about when you said, if you were really good at one thing, that you're good at wondering. And that has really helped me feel alive and feeling free to share my personal journey with someone, to have somebody responsive to it and as curious and genuine as you've been. So I thank you for that too.
Well, and thank you for, saying yes to this, saying yes to letting Trainwreck come in your car and after buying him a bottle of booze. So thanks.
I don't recommend it, not condoning letting Trainwreck in your car.
Yeah. But thanks for still taking a risk on all of this, because it's been a fun journey. And like I said, even from the standpoint of, it's been great getting to know you. And this has not been an example of never meet some of your heroes, because you definitely were one of my heroes coming up in the creative arts. It was a nice beacon of light, nice lighthouse for me as far as quality, mindset, all of that. So it's been a amazing, pleasurable experience for me. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, good to hear.
Absolutely.
So that's about all I got.
Perfect. We'll see y'all next time, and maybe we'll cross paths and definitely come and say hello. But thanks, everybody. This is season 1 of We Should Be Working. Thank you.
Take care.
That's stupid. I'm not doing that.